us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline to weigh in on that conversation and much more is former BYU great John Beck, quarterback, y'all. John, welcome back to the show.
What's up, John?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
First and foremost, John, what's a fall camp like when there isn't a clear number one quarterback, and how does that affect the team?
There's a lot of change in continuity. I've been a part of those in college. I've been a part of those in the NFL, and you're showing up basically the day of practice, finding out which group you're going to run with, how many reps you're going to get. There's just a lot of bouncing around. So, and really the continuity that you're trying to establish with a unit, it's not there because every day things are changing. And that's one of the disadvantages to having a competition. The advantage would be you got to show up and play your best every day no matter what situation you're in. And the quarterback position requires you to play well in difficult situations. But from a continuity standpoint, it makes it difficult. I think that's why any coach you talk to says, I want to have a competition, but I want this competition to be done with so that we can move forward with the guy we're going to go with.
How much can you learn in practice how good a quarterback is versus, say, what you're going to see in the games later, John?
I think you can get a pretty good feel. I think one of the hardest things in a quarterback competition is who gets what plays. A lot of the times you script plays in practice or you change kind of on the fly, or maybe the script has a basic out cut on both sides and the corners have been sitting all practice, and then all of a sudden the offensive coordinator says, you know what, let's tag a double move here, and whoever happens to be the quarterback for that rep gets an opportunity to hit the big play. And, that out and up could have worked no matter who the quarterback was, but it just happens to fall into that guy's lap. So the hard part is judging who got the opportunities to make big plays today, who didn't. You can't always look at it as who made the big play or who made the critical play in the red zone, because the other quarterbacks may not have even got an opportunity to make that play. So practice does give you a good idea. You got to look at who's taking advantage when the opportunity is there. You can't compare just across the board of, well, who won today? You have to look at what did they get and what did they do with what they got. That will show you what they'll do on game day.
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. We're discussing the current BYU quarterback battle. Let's say that all things are equal, that Tanner Mangum and Zach Wilson are on the exact same plane, and they have both impressed the coaches, and they're not really sure who's better. It's tough to determine. Should BYU go with a senior who has 26 games of experience, 21 starts, or a true freshman who has been lights out in camp?
Well, I like both the guys. I like Tanner a lot. I think if you put Tanner in, Tanner will do a really good job. I really like Zach, shows a lot of potential. If I'm the coach, based off of everything that I've been around, I'll tell you what I would do and then also what I've seen coaches do. I would go with the guy that has experience. One, because I can effectively communicate with him in game situations where maybe adjustments are needed to be made, and he's been in that position before. So, I'm going to walk into a game with a game plan. I'm going to feel like the guy that has more experience is going to give me a better opportunity to execute that game plan most likely. But then it comes down to in-game adjustments. And I'm not saying that a young player is not going to be capable, but those 26 games that he's played in give him an opportunity, an edge, to make in-game adjustments because it's likely that he's done it before. He's felt the bullets. He's felt the pressure. He's felt what it's like to have to make a change on the fly, to have to adjust to things. He has a bank of experience and knowledge that we can draw upon when we need to make changes. Now, going to coaches that I've seen, I've been in situations in the NFL where I've sat in the office and the coach says, here's the quarterback competition. I'm calling it a tie, but because of experience, it's going to this guy because of all the things I just listed. And maybe that's why I said what I said if I was the coach, because that's what I've been around, that's what I've seen. And I've even been on the end of the guy that doesn't have the experience, who walks out of the room frustrated because he feels completely capable of doing the job. But from experience, that coach is picking a guy because of the things that experience brings with it.
And Zach Wilson might be that guy that yields to Tanner. We'll see. Zach brought up some of the experience and training he had with you, training with you once a month, I think, over the summer. What was your experience like with Zach Wilson, and what do you think of him?
It's been great. Zach's an extremely talented athlete. He's a talented thrower. I think he's got great potential. For a young guy coming in, what would be a senior in high school when he came out to me the first time, I was really impressed. I was impressed with who he was before he even came to us, just the way that he could throw the ball. And he's a really diligent worker. He stays on top of things. Dick Harmon reached out to me yesterday to do a little article on it because I guess Zach said something at practice, and I said how much the way that Zach approaches things reminds me of Matt Ryan 3 years ago when he came to us. Just the way that he stays on top of every aspect of the things that we give these quarterbacks. It doesn't come down to just mechanics. There's a lot more about building the body, about staying on top of your armchair recovery, all these things, tying your feet into things, using load and leverage. For an 18-year-old kid to be approaching things the way that he's doing it, that's what's the most impressive. And then you get to stack on athletic ability, arm talent, all that. You know, he has a great future ahead of him if he continues to keep the same patterns that he's doing right now in his work ethic and behaviors.
We're not sure if BYU is going to publicly announce and reveal a starter by September 1st when they take on Arizona, something that you know a little something about opening a season in Tucson. We'll get to more of that in just a bit, John. But is not revealing a starter a competitive advantage with that strategy? If so, how?
I think it can be a competitive advantage if the two players are significantly different. I think if you have two players that will execute the offense roughly the same way, and the offense is going to be ran the same way regardless of who's the quarterback, I don't think it's that much of a competitive advantage. I think where it can be an advantage if one guy is far more mobile than the other, if one guy has shown more of a risk-taking play, one guy has shown more of a safe and secure way of play, style of play. If the style of play is close, no. But like I said, if you have one guy that's going to get out and move around a lot, that they're going to use him and maybe some run options, some read options, or he's just going to be more of a scrambler, then there's definitely, when the threat of the legs comes into it, then there can definitely be an advantage.
All these guys have to learn a new offense because Jeff Grimes is new at BYU. How quickly should we expect this offense to click and kind of reveal what they are?
Oh, that's hard to say. I've seen coaches start a season, and the game plan that they go into with the first game, their first game ever being a coach, is great, and it works. And everything that they have dialed up hits right on the head. And they go out there and they put up 30, 40 points, and it looks like, gosh, that just worked. And I've seen other times where you go out there and it doesn't click, and it doesn't mean you're not an efficient offense. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be capable. It just means in that moment right there, things didn't work. So, it's hard to say. I would imagine that Jeff's going to try to establish a run game. Him being, background in the offensive line, he knows how important that is to establish. And anytime you establish a run game, you may have some plays, some guys, some keepers, some shots that you could run off the play action game. So it's hard to say, if it's going to work right off the bat or if not, if it's going to take some time. I've been a part of both. I've walked into a game where you think it should be really good and you're expecting to put up 20, 30 points and you put up 3. And then to start a season. And then you go out another time and you're wondering what the game plan is going to be like. I've been in games to start an NFL season with a new coordinator, and all of a sudden, boom, you just go gangbuster. And the shot plays work, the run game works, and it's easy. And then you follow it up 2 weeks later with a goose egg or something like that. And it's so hard to say. It just depends on really experience. I think one of the best things a coach can have is experienced players, because then you get to install an offense, and then they have all this wealth of game time experience, of making plays, a confidence about them, all these things that bringing your offense to it did nothing. You get to use that for your offense.
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. 2006 Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, led BYU to an 11-2 record in his senior season. John, if you were the coach and you had the call to name a quarterback at BYU, given the circumstances and scenario this year, when would you do it?
I would say what you want to see, if I was the head coach, you always hear that phrase, I want to see a guy stand out. I want to see a guy take it by the reins, make it his thing. I think all those guys are trying to do that. I think what you need to do is you need to start seeing somebody pull away a little bit and then be consistent. Like I said earlier, I've been a part of QB battles, and you'll have a guy that for a couple days is hot and then all of a sudden cools off. And the back and forth looks like it's gone because somebody's had 3 or 4 consistent days ahead of it. And then all of a sudden, boom, they just cool off. And some of it can be because of plays. Some of it can be because the defense starts scheming. The more you get into camp, there's less of these vanilla offenses because, the first 3-4 days of camp, everything's very vanilla. So you're going to have a high completion percentage. 7-on-7 is going to be about 80-90% completion. There's no real contact. Players are playing a little different. They're staying within everything the coach is telling them to do. And then all of a sudden when you start putting in some more of your pressures, your schemes, then the offense and defense goes back and forth. You want to see a quarterback that when that starts happening, when the back and forth chess game starts happening between offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator at practice, veteran players, then it starts becoming more like a real game. Then those guys consistently for a few days start showing themselves as day in, day out, they're the guy. That's when you say, all right, there's my guy. Now it's time to go forward with that guy. And then you have to not look back. One thing that I've seen coaches do, and I think it's one of the downfalls to quarterback development, is they pick a guy, they say they pick a guy, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just make a change. No, you have to, when you pick a guy, you have to say, this is who I'm going with, thick or thin. There may be a bad day here or there. It's not going to hinder the way I feel about this guy. I trust in this guy. I'm sticking with him. You see it all through the course of quarterback development. When they stick with guys and they allow that guy to play through the bumps, that guy can then all of a sudden catapult himself to another level. You have to be so confident in your decision that you're not willing to pull the plug too early on him.
What do you think of the decision to make Beau Hodge a running back and perhaps even a receiver in this offense?
You know what? I heard that had happened, and I don't know Beau well enough. I mean, I've seen him play. The game that he played at quarterback, I was really impressed with. I believe he was a starter at Wisconsin, and I was really impressed with some of the athletic plays that he made. So, just off my limited time seeing him as a runner and as a playmaker, I can see why with that athletic ability you want to find a way to get him on the field. But to be honest, I haven't seen enough in practice or any other stuff to make a statement about what he's like as a running back. I did see him as a quarterback, and I saw a lot of athleticism, but I don't know how that would translate to quarterback. Hopefully, if he's going to be more the one or two there at running back, I hope it works out great for the guys. One thing that I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a quarterback, but to have a guy who's a quarterback now go to running back and be involved in protections in the pass game and be involved in knowing where to go in space. I'm not saying all quarterbacks know this, but the majority of guys I've been around, you have to know so much as a quarterback. To have him standing next to the quarterback, being involved in pass protections, that can be a huge benefit.
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. We'll finish with this, John. What's opening the season at Arizona like for a BYU football team? Because you did it in 2006.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember, I didn't grow up a U of A person at all. That was the team that, because my family was season ticket holders for Arizona State, we couldn't stand them. So to go down there, it was my first time in a big game stadium like that ever, fan or player. But it was a big electric environment. I really thought we were going to win that game, even at the end when we were going in on some drives. The Arizona fan base, they were rocking. So I'm sure it's going to be an intense environment, especially because it's the start of the season. I think it's an ESPN game at night, right? Something like that.
Yes.
So I'm sure their fans are going to be all hyped up. I just saw that Sports Illustrated cover had the kid from U of A saying he could possibly be the most electric quarterback in the country, the best quarterback in the country. So I'm sure it's going to be a big-time stage. I can remember that game at the end of it. There was a couple minutes left. We're going in on a drive, and I'm fully thinking, we got this. We're going to win this game. Looking back, having lost it, I can remember there being some critical plays in the beginning of the game. We started off the game with a fumble on a pass play, and then we had a field goal that was botched, and then we also had a penalty in the end zone. And, it just kind of makes me think, these exciting, big, electric games in the beginning of the season, you have so much going on you're preparing for in camp. Sometimes it's those little details that you might not spend enough time on in camp that can cause an impact on a play that can impact the game. So I look at it as, can BYU walk into that stadium and can they still execute the little details in a brand new offense, in a brand new scheme with a lot of, new players stepping in at roles. Don't just go out there and think that excitement or passion or intensity is going to win the game. You have to bring that with you, but it's also what team can start the season and still be good at the really small details. Penalties can kill you in the first game of the season. Be smart about those, because those hidden yardage plays, all those things, they can stack up. And if you can be on the winning side of that, there's a good chance you're on the winning side when the clock runs down.
John, always a pleasure. We appreciate the insight into the season opener at Arizona and the intriguing developing quarterback battle at BYU. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, sounds good. We'll see you guys.